Aaron, General Keith Kellogg made some disturbing comments that are directly related to this phenomenon of fighting to the last Ukrainian. So I want to feature that right now.
Yeah, he is the...
Who is Keith Kellogg?
He is the former advisor to Mike Pence. When Pence was vice president, Kellogg was his national security advisor. And he's also a regular on Fox News. And he talked about recently in congressional testimony how we need to use Ukraine not just to send a message to Russia, but to China as well.
So here's retired General Keith Kellogg.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, I believe if you can defeat a strategic adversary not using any U.S. troops, you're at the acme of professionalism, because letting the Ukrainians defeat that, it takes a strategic adversary off the table, and then we can focus where we should be focusing against our primary adversary, which is China at this time. The concern I've got is I don't think we need to put American troops there. And if we fail in this, we may have to fight another European war, be the third time. And I don't think we should do that or need to do that as well.
So how do
he speaks pretty fast there, but for anyone who didn't catch it, he says it's the acme of professionalism to use Ukraine to fight Russia, because doing that without any U.S. troops takes a strategic adversary off the table. And that allows us to focus on our real adversary, which is China. So he's saying that not only should we use Ukraine to fight Russia because that takes them off the table, it also allows us to focus on who we should be fighting ourselves, which is China. That's pretty much his message.
And, Keith Kellogg has made some pretty disturbing comments about how he sees a war with China play out. Let's take a listen to those.
You have any reason? Have you seen any indication that she is not willing to do something like that?
And then he's banking on the fact.
All right, well, we can't really hear him, but essentially what he's saying is that the U.S. should be willing to risk nuclear war with China in order to defend Taiwan. That he's acknowledging the possibility of a nuclear war over the Taiwan Strait, but the U.S. should be willing to escalate to that level just to teach China a lesson, because they're our ultimate enemy. And Keith Kellogg actually responded to Anya Parampil, our colleague at the Grayzone, who happened to be watching Fox and saw him make those bloodthirsty comments. He said, Keith Kellogg actually says, yes, it means that a president must be bold and fearless and willing to consider all courses of action against any adversary, but it must be explained to the American people and they must be part of any action. Go back and read General Powell Doctrine from the first Gulf War. Okay, that wasn't the Powell Doctrine, but he's basically saying that willing to consider nuclear war. What Colin Powell said was that if you run into a country like a bull in a china shop, you have to pick up the pieces and be responsible for cleaning up your mess. And that was his warning to George W. Bush about going into Iraq.
Yeah, so that's funny. He didn't understand Colin Powell's doctrine.
No,
but that makes sense for a guy who's saying enthusiastically yes to the question of whether he's proposing risking nuclear war. He didn't hesitate to say yes, I am. So that makes sense. What a window. I mean, and that's, what he said in that clip we played of him about how it's great to use Ukraine to fight Russia because it takes a adversary off the table without losing any U.S. troops. He's just articulating what the dominant mindset is in Washington right now. We've heard so many people say that. Lindsey Graham said it. He said, as long as we give Ukraine the weapons they need, they'll fight to the last person. By the way, Lindsey Graham also recently said that about Taiwan too. He said that Taiwanese are also ready to fight to the last person. So Lindsey Graham's very enthused about cannon fodder from Ukraine to Taiwan in the interest of U.S. hegemony. And there's so many other people have said that. Even Ukraine's defense minister recently said that we're fighting NATO's mission. We're not defending ourselves. We're fighting NATO's mission. So it's a proxy war. And accordingly, when you're using someone else as your proxy, you're going to have contempt for their lives. You're not going to care about sacrificing them for your own hegemonic goals, as people like Keith Kellogg make repeatedly clear. And amazingly, none of this pierces the brains of all these progressives in Congress and elsewhere who have lined up to support this proxy war and claim that we're defending Ukraine and doing this to defend democracy, it doesn't occur to them that all their ideological allies in this proxy war are openly saying we're using this to pursue hegemony and we're using Ukrainians as cannon fodder. Doesn't really seem to impact any of these people who are lining up to still support this war and while calling themselves progressive.